This is a lovely project and makes a wonderful gift box for things like a silk scarf or a necklace or perhaps some homemade chocolates. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you first of all how to make the inner box and then how we make the wrap to go around the outside, which you'll see will just neatly marry over at the front and will look lovely with a hand-tied bow on the front there. So we're going to start by making the inner box first of all. So this is the part that's cut to 9¼ inches square, so quite a bit smaller than the other one. And it says I'm going to place this on box lid, so we're placing, assuming you've got the handle at the top and you're working with the butting edge at your left hand side. Usually I would work like this, but just so that the camera can see, it's actually easier for me to work like this. And I'm going to score 1½ inches on all 4 sides. So just make sure every time you're butting up against the left hand side that you're actually meeting all the way down. And then as with any box, put that to one side, turn over, and I always turn over so that you're folding the cardstock away from itself in terms of where you've scored it. And I'm making the inner box here for you in a slightly different colour card, in like a cream card, just so that you can see the contrast when we do the wrap around in the white card. But obviously in a beautiful pearlescent card, this is going to look lovely, this one. So always cutting right up the centre of the score line and cutting a small notch out of the corner. And then if you're working at home, I would recommend either a tacky glue, or if you do have this specific Crafters Companion tape pen, this is strong enough for you to be able to create boxes from, and I can say with confidence that the box isn't going to fall apart. But notice what I'm doing each time. I'm going up the line of the score line, along the top, and then just filling in with some extra pieces of glue. And that's because when I turn the corner, the important thing to note is that this here is going to line up with this part here. So as long as we can get those two perfectly lined up, you're going to have an angle which is exactly 90 degrees in all 3 dimensions here. So coming in from all 4 sides, you can hold that in place, and you'll see in the instructions that I've written, I held mine together with tacky glue and therefore just held it in place with some pegs while I was waiting. Now I'm going to put that to one side while we do the outer wrap. So bringing the tool back in, for the outer wrap you need a much larger piece of cardstock, so this is going to be 16½ inches this way, and we're cutting it by 9½ inches this way, okay? And it says I'm going to place the shorter edge, so that would be this one here, against box base. So this is when we're coming down to here. So placing the shorter edge at box base, I'm going to score at 3½ inches. So come along to 3½ inches. So this is step 4 if you're following from your instruction sheet, okay? Now it says crease and burnish the score line. So that's when we turn it over. That's your crease, this is your burnish, okay? And then what I need to do from here is rest it up against the side so that we're resting the score line against the side, and it tells me I need to score at the 1½ inch line. So this is what's going to come up at the depth of our box, you see. So this is not actually 1½ inches, this is 1½ inches plus a little bit, which is what's going to be perfect to just sit higher than our box, okay? So we're going to do exactly the same on the opposite side. So turn it right around. We're going to come to 3½ inches again, scoring at 3½, turn over, fold and then burnish, fold it back on itself, resting up against that edge and coming along to 1½ inches. Right, so then what we're going to do is turn this round 90 degrees. So this is step 8. And what I'm doing is I'm putting across the 2 outer panels, we're going to score at 1½ inches. So just onto the bottom here, we're coming to 1½ inches, and we're going to score right up there, the 2 end sections. So you're just coming through this first score line and into the second score line, okay? Now when you get to here, what it tells me to do is just jump in one notch, so come along one notch extra, and you'll feel it. Can you just see there? I'm just jumping from one score line to the next. So I'm in this one, jumping into the next one and scoring the middle section. Okay, and then when we get to the edge, we're going to do the same again. We're going to just jump back along and score right out. And what you should find is, if I just take this up to the top, this should be coming in at what appears to be 10.5 on this side. Okay, now I'm going to turn that round and do exactly the same on the other side so you can follow. So putting the long edge against the scoring rest, coming to 1.5 inches, we're coming up the 1.5 inch line through our first score line into the second one, jumping along one score line, coming up the centre, jumping back out to the original score line and going right through to the end. Okay, so it just gives me a middle panel which is scored slightly further in than the two outer edges. That's all the scoring that we need to do on the board. I'm going to take that to one side, and next we're going to be on to step 10. So what we're going to do, and I'll do this with a cutting knife, it'll be easier for you to see, is we're going to cut away this middle section completely. So just cutting up to here, where we've got that score line. And if you use a metal ruler, obviously if you don't want to be using a plastic one because that would cut into the side of the plastic ruler, and that's going to come away all together. And do the same here. Cutting down through the centre of your score line on each of these sections. And then you want to be aiming to come right through the centre of the score line and take that away. Okay? So I find it much easier actually to do a diagonal score line if I'm using the Ultimate. There's all of the scoring done. Now I want you just to come in with the scissors and just cut along this diagonal that we've just drawn on there. I'm right-handed, so I find it's much easier if I've always got the cutting just slightly to my right. So notice I'm just turning the cardstock just to find an angle that's easier for me to cut at all the time. Okay, and then if we start and burnish these, you'll be able to see exactly how this is coming together before we do our final couple of score lines, a couple of cut lines even. So you can see that box is going to sit in the centre, and this is going to be the side that comes up, and then we're just going to have the top that wraps around. So all you're doing is you're cutting up this one here, and that is going to form that perfectly in there, and we'll just need to cut off this extra. So whether you do it beforehand or after makes no difference. So just hold that there, you see. Put a little pencil mark on here, and then just make sure I at least cut the pencil mark off, if not the pencil mark and a little bit more. So then finally, these are just going to sit underneath, so you would want your tape, again, right up to the line and plenty of it on. And then the last thing that's left to do is just make sure all these score lines are really nicely burnished, both back and front. And we're going to hold that box in place. So again, I'm just going to use tape for convenience. You might want to use a tacky glue. And there you can see I did that box in that slightly different colour, just so that you could see it easily. And then what you'll find is they should just come and meet together in the middle and just slightly overlap marginally to give you a nice neat finish.